Meanwhile, Le'Veon Bell is facing a 4-game suspension for a violation of the NFL's drugs policy, sources telling our ESPN's Dan Graziano. The suspension is the result of a missed drug test, not a failed one, this according to sources. Now, according to the NFL's substance abuse policy, a player must miss multiple drug tests before he would be subject to a suspension. No date for Bell's appeal has been set, though it's expected that it will be heard before the regular season. Bell said on Instagram that he will win his appeal and he will not miss any games. Wide receiver Martavis Bryant is suspended for a minimum of 1 year for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. Stephen A., how much trouble are the Steelers in?
Max, in case you didn't know, even though I'm a native New Yorker, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
That is the correct out-of-market rooting interest, by the way. I just want to say one thing, kids. If you're going to pick an out-of-market team, the front runners and the fake fans take the Cowboys, and the real hardcore fans take the Steelers. If you're going to take an out-of-market team, the Steelers are the one.
There we go. First football game I ever saw was the Immaculate Reception with Franco Harris and stuff, and I was addicted to it ever since, the purple and gold. I cannot put into words how disgusted I am. In the off-season, I said Antonio Brown, what is it, 136 receptions, 1,834 yards. This is with Landry Jones and Michael Vick quarterbacking for you for 5 games because Ben Roethlisberger was hurt. I mean, could you imagine what he would have done if Ben Roethlisberger had played all 16 games? I mean, you got to be kidding me. And then you got Marcus Wheaton and Heath Schuler, even though Ladarius Green is there now because Schuler retired. And then you got Le'Veon Bell.
Heath Miller.
Heath Miller, I'm sorry. All right, because he's retired. Now you got Ladarius Green. And then I'm thinking D'Angelo Williams and Le'Veon Bell in the backfield. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be beautiful. Oh, this is going to be special. They just going to run. This is going to be better than Air Coryell. I'm just loving it. You know, I'm like, if they can get their defensive, their secondary together, they'll be all right. They were 11th ranked defensively, even though they were 21 giving up yards. I'm like, oh, this is going to be beautiful. And then Martavis Bryant got suspended for the year. And I was disgusted. But I had some people in the Steelers like, Stephen A., calm down. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And then this happens. And then they say, oh, it's not a failed drug test. We failed to show up. Really? Really? You failed to show? So you're going to miss multiple drug tests?
What happens when you get high? You forget to go to the...
Or you might know you are and say, I don't want to show up now. It's hard for me because I like Le'Veon Bell, not just as a player, but I spoke to him after he had gotten suspended at one time. Incredibly contrite, very remorseful, sensitive to what he did to Mike Tomlin, sensitive to what he did to the Steelers organization, sensitive to what he did to himself and his family name, and he was sensitive to all of that. I interviewed him during Super Bowl week and all of that stuff. I got a lot of love for Le'Veon Bell, not just the player, but the person. But again, you find yourself in this situation. How much sympathy am I supposed to have? How much sympathy are you or anybody else supposed to have? This is your job. This is your money. And then it resonates with me, Max, Molly, from the perspective that I understand. Look, I come from the story that most of these dudes come from. I'm lucky and very fortunate to have the greatest mother in the world. I got wonderful parents, wonderful family. But the point is, I didn't grow up. I mean, we grew up in the streets of New York. Drug dealers on the corner, the whole nine. You know what guys have to go through to get to this point. And you're blowing it because you can't stay off the weed? Really? I mean, come on. Come on. And this is, ow. The Steelers, I mean, we got a shot. We got a shot. My man Mike Tomlin, I had the pleasure when I went there to interview Mike Tomlin last year. I sat down with Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator. I know what kind of job he's capable of doing. And you got Big Ben Roethlisberger, a Hall of Famer. A Hall of Famer. And come on.
I'm just for clarification, you were for them or against them smoking weed?
I'm against them smoking weed. You
I wasn't sure.
I mean, come on.
Let me just write it down.
Stay off the weed.
No weed.
Oh.
Look, I'm with you on the Steelers. As a matter of fact, the first football team I was really aware. I'm a Giants fan. I'm from New York. Big Giants fan, but when I was a kid, I used to root for the Steelers because they won the Super Bowl every year. Because Mean Joe Green was on the Great Space Coasters in the morning, right? Like so every kid grew up knowing about the Steelers, and as I said, that's the real. If you're going to have an out-of-market rooting interest, it's the Steelers. So I always keep my eye on them. Right. And before last season, looking at what the offensive line was up to, even in the preseason, having an all-time great future Hall of Fame quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, having the best, by far the best running back in the game. Todd Gurley's coming, Adrian Peterson's going. But when he's on the field, Le'Veon Bell is the best, by far, running back in football. Yeah, all around running, absolutely, by far. If you play fantasy, you know that. If you watch the actual game, you know that. He's the #1 guy. So you have one of the best quarterbacks. You have the best running back. You have, at this moment, the best wideout, at least by the numbers, certainly, and Antonio Brown. Martavis Bryant, you have like a 7'2" guy who runs a 3.2 40 on the other side, right? You have a great offensive line. You had a veteran last year tight end in Heath Miller. You have every single thing you need to have potentially the greatest offense ever. I thought the Steelers last year had a chance to have the greatest offense of all time. Things didn't work out. A lot of things have to go right for that to be the case. It didn't work out. But even without Le'Veon Bell, you have D'Angelo Williams step up and play like an elite.
Averaging 4.5 yards a carry.
You know, elite running back.
200 carries.
This is your backup running back. It also speaks to the line because now he... Okay, so last year it didn't quite happen. What about this year? And then you looked at the defense last year and you realized... All right, it's not a very good defense. Could it be bend but don't break? And in fact, they ended the year strong. 21st overall yards allowed, so bottom third-ish.
11 points.
11th in points allowed. So that really tells you bend but don't break. That's just the kind of defense you can win a Super Bowl with if you have an overwhelming offense. I think the odds makers and the betting public understood that going into this season, which is why before this happened, I'd have to recheck it, but they were the odds-on favorite other than the Patriots in the AFC. I mean, they're ahead of teams that you would think like Arizona. Maybe it's because it's NFC and it's tougher right now. At least that's the perception. But they're ahead of other teams that you would think maybe should be ahead of them. That's how good people recognize this offense can be. And they return the offensive line. But now all of a sudden, you take away, look, Williams is 33 now, and you take away the best running back in the game for four.
You're good. You know what it did?
Quarter of the season.
It took you from great to very good.
Right.
But you need to be great when Tom Brady is going to come off a 4-game suspension.
This is my next point, Stephen A. However, he's missing 4 games, and as good as Le'Veon Bell is, he's the third most important offensive piece on the team. Think about how good the Steelers' offense could be for a second. I just said, and I think everyone agrees, he's by far the best running back in the NFL, in the world. And yet he's the third most important offensive player on the team because they have Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. I mean, this offense is so stacked. You take him away, third best. The Patriots are going to be without Tom Brady for the same number of games. Their most important offensive player and their quarterback in this day and age. So, in fact, the hit that the Steelers took is severe, but maybe not as severe as the hit that the Patriots took, and the Patriots are the only team rated ahead of the Steelers in terms of odds to win the Super Bowl.
The only problem that I have with your analogy there is that although you're right, because Tom Brady is the most important loss, you do have Bill Belichick, and you do have the Patriots organization, and you do have a defense that knows how to show up and get it done in the absence of a lot of different things. You've got the dual tight end set. Garoppolo is going to be in there. You've got Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett, who's 6'7", by the way, playing alongside Gronkowski in that 2 tight end set. That's going to be incredibly beneficial for New England. I obviously got mad respect and love for Mike Tomlin. A matter of fact, for me, I think it's appropriate for me to say it would be nice, although guys shouldn't be doing it anyway, no matter who the coach is, it would be nice for the brothers to be sensitive to a brother in Mike Tomlin, because you don't see African Americans getting a bevy of opportunities in the NFL on a head coaching level. So if you're Le'Veon Bell, if you're Martavis Bryant or somebody, how about looking over at a dude that is universally respected in Mike Tomlin and saying, I don't really need to do that to him? That would be nice. It's just a thought.
That's kind of on the coach, though. The coach has to. And by the way, Mike Tomlin is, I mean, look, who would you really want coaching you if you played for a team? Mike Tomlin, you'd think, is the kind of guy you could run through a wall for.
That's right.
But you're right. The best coach in football,
is Bill Belichick.
Maybe history, is Bill Belichick. And don't you get the feeling like with Garoppolo, they might be 3-1 or something like that by the time Brady gets back?
See, my thing is this. I could see a 2-2. But even if it's 2-2, you trying to tell me Brady? A ticked-off Brady, by the way. A ticked-off Brady, who, by the way, very wisely decided to drop his case against the NFL. Good for you. I'm glad you came to your senses, Tom Brady. But a ticked-off Brady You trying to tell me he can't win 10 or 12 games?
Yep.
I believe he can.
Yep.
So I can still see, even with Brady missing 4 games, I could still see the New England Patriots coming back and going 12-4, being, obviously winning the AFC East because that's never a challenge, okay? And then moving on from there. I can still see that happening.
What new ways are the Patriots devising to cheat as we speak?
Please.
To get an advantage. Who knows?
Well, you could say that, but guess what? Obviously, they're not getting caught enough because they've been consistent contenders for the last decade plus.
We don't know anything about Jimmy Garoppolo. He played at Eastern Illinois.
But you know what? But to Stephen A's point, Belichick is the kind of guy where just because you're on the team and he entrusts you to be the backup quarterback, as fans, as pundits, as people in the media, I'm sure even other football teams, they look at that and go, boy, he must be good, or Belichick wouldn't have him.
There we go.
Matt Castle got the job done, right?
Listen, Matt Castle, we ain't heard from him since he left Belichick. But when he's with Belichick, he went 11-5. They didn't make the playoffs, but he went 11-5. Matt Castle, as a starter, went 11-5. To me, that was the day I said, Belichick can coach.
Missed the playoffs. The one time Brady wasn't available, though, they did miss the playoffs.
They did miss the playoffs.
Yes, but not a Steelers fan here, but I'm going to miss seeing Le'Veon Bell out there. But we'll be there. We'll be there at training camp Wednesday, so you guys can ask them all these questions, Mike Tomlin and all those guys. We're looking forward to that. Up next, staying with the NFL.